Hey good people, Batavia here. Welcome to Be Better Garden. A couple of housekeeping items. I am in Chicago, Illinois. I garden in Zone 6 and my average first frost date is November the 1st. I have been working over the last several years to become a 3-season gardener. So I have historically planted out basically in the summer. But over the last handful of years, I've been trying to get out in the spring and plant, grow in the summer, and then also have a fall garden. Today we are going to do a mixture of things, including a little bit of cleanup. We're going to check on some vegetables. We're going to see if we can harvest some things that are dry, although again it's been raining quite a bit. And I'm going to stop there because I think 1 or 2 vlogs ago we established in the garden short list or better. Last housekeeping item, big thank yous to those who like, watch, comment, share, and subscribe to Be Better Garden. I appreciate y'all. If you haven't subscribed already, consider it. And let's dig in. Okie doke, so cleanup, because I have spaces that I want to get planted. I just knocked down this sunflower. I'm just blown away by how that one plant has opened up this bed so much. So I'm pulling the green beans. These were the bush beans that we put in like in May. I'm going to clean this bed up a bit because now that we have some open space here where the sun can get through, I think this will make a pretty nice space for some of our fall plants. So this is a prime way of getting volunteer sunflowers because of all of these shells that are in here, and there are no doubt some whole sunflowers in here too. There is a part of me that is considering making this just a sunflower bed next year. It's such a small space, so it doesn't grow a ton of food. You know, I guess it all depends on what you plant. But it will really be something for sunflowers. We'll see. So I think I put this wire up 1 year because I was planting peas here. Ironically enough, it's something I've considered planting here again this fall. I want to be able to add some compost and fertilizer, and I'm just trying to get somewhat of a clean slate. I don't need to get every sunflower seed out of this bed. That's not even my intention. But I do want to clear weeds where possible and any plant roots. If I were to have left the beans in place, specifically the roots, that's an opportunity for them to decompose and then feed the soil with nitrogen. Just having the plants there doesn't necessarily benefit the soil, but when it comes to those roots breaking down, that's where the power is. But that's not the plan for this space. Hey friend, we're about to get some rain, and as always I didn't get all the things I wanted to get done this morning, but that's okay. It feels good to have this bed cleared, and I'll just need to add my amendments to the space and get it planted out. I'm thinking turnips. We'll talk about kind of the logic I use with what to plant where.
Hey you.
Hey now, how are you? 2 days in a row. I'm doing good. So one of the last things I wanted to do today was cut out the yellow squash, and then unfortunately it's the zucchini that has the powdery mildew. So I'm going to cut it back because it just started producing zucchini and see if I can save the plant. I've not found any way to treat powdery mildew that's effective. So we'll see if we can just get a few zucchini off of this plant. The next couple of days you may find that I'm just cutting it out altogether. I'm trying to be really careful with, since you know the powdery mildew is essentially spores, I'm trying to be real careful with what I'm touching. That's why I have on disposable gloves, and I'm putting the leaves directly into a trash bag instead of one of my buckets, because those buckets I would use like for shredded leaves or dirt or whatever. So just try to take some precautions. And it's pretty normal for me to get powdery mildew on both cucumber plants, sometimes melons, definitely squash. I said when I come back in a couple of days, I might end up pulling it. By the time I cut this plant and prune it today, I might end up deciding it's not worth trying to save. I pour a little netting here. The little section next to it has a cabbage butterfly inside of the netting. So it's super clear that, let's see, this is what the damage from the squash vine borer looks like, that kind of sawdust look. So that's why this plant ended up dying back, the yellow squash. So when I'm done with these, I'll toss the gloves that I'm using and I will clean my scissors with some alcohol, just regular rubbing alcohol. So I wasn't able to see this until I started cutting away some of the plant, and there is more squash vine borer damage. So now that we could see that, I'm going to take the one zucchini here, itty bitty, harvest it, and then pull the entire plant. And that will essentially open up this space. So we're going to take that as a win. Although it's unfortunate that the squash vine borer, as my buddy Ben likes to say, the little bastard, struck again. Okie doke, so I spent my morning out of the garden, but doing garden things. Flowers, I have some dirt that I'm going to start with in the front yard in that first bed that we cleaned up. And then I have some canning supplies. So Menards, one of my favorite stores, it has jars on sale. Let's see, all different sizes. These are pints, and both you can apply their 11% rebate to. And then they have the, quart sizes. I'm pretty sure they have the 8-ounce sizes too. But it's worth a look at your local stores. I don't know that you can order them online and have them delivered, but it's worth a peek. So we took a couple of days off from being in the garden, and it was needed. But we are going to make this a harvest day. Some things that are like really ripe, some things that maybe at the point of, like, for tomatoes, just blushing. Another gardener commented, and I am in absolute agreement, about picking tomatoes when they get just a bit of color on them. That helps with you if you're like battling animals. So unfortunately, I've not had like the time to get out here. Going into last week, there was quite a bit of rain here, and I didn't want to kind of harvest tomatoes directly, or anything really, directly after the rain. And so I put that off. I went into life for a couple of days, wasn't able to get out here. So the news is we've had a breach in the tomato cage. Not 1, but 2 days. And so we're going to try to secure the space after I go in and get all of our ripe tomatoes. So let's dig in. We have quite a few tomatoes in here we're going to pull out. I'm going to start though with our cucumbers, and 1 or 2 or 3 days too many for pickles, but fine for like slicing cucumbers for juicing. Any dishes you're going to eat a fresh cucumber with, they're okay with if you take the skin off of. When they get too big, these are the national pickling cucumbers on this end. When they get too big, they get more seedy, a lot more seeds in them. Hi there. Sure. Now this down here is a straight 8 cucumber, just based on what I planted where. So that will be fine. Like, that's the perfect size for that kind of cucumber. And this could be a straight 8 cucumber that again just went too far. So we're going to pick and cut all of these off. And the plants, generally speaking, still look pretty healthy. So I'm hoping that we could put on another flush of cucumbers where I can get them more of an ideal size for pickling. So we'll see. Already eaten almost all of that first batch of refrigerator pickles that I made. So I hope that at some point as we move about in the garden, I can find my pruners. I looked in the house for them and kind of some of the slots I normally keep them in and can't find them. If I need to cut tomatoes off the vine, if they just don't come off the vine, I prefer to use pruners because I will forever pierce a tomato if I use scissors. But for stuff like this, scissors are just as easy when it comes to cucumbers. See a couple of new flowers. I'm running out of room in there. Nobody said anything. I'm not going to beat myself up. It would have been great to have gotten to these a day or two earlier, but here we are. Relish is also a good use of like cucumbers that are slightly overgrown. And you don't even need to cut them sometimes. You can just twist the cucumbers off the vine. I just really try to take extra precaution not to damage the vine or the veggie that I'm harvesting. And then we also have some of the Asian style, like kind of thinner cucumbers. They could grow a little while longer though.
How you doing?
I'm good, how are you?
Doing well. You have a great day.
Oh, you too now, thank you. So the first two plants are the Romas and the San Marzonos. And so some of this fruit is really ripe. And of course you can see some of the leaves and branches have died back. But we're not going to concern ourselves with this. Once I get the really ripe fruit off, I'll be able to see how much is left and if I want to leave the plant in place or pull it. And please do know that pulling plants the way I've talked about them has not been my norm. It's just something I've adjusted to because I do think it's, in some cases, better for the garden. See the first cracking of a tomato for the brandy wine. These are all San Marzonos that are coming off now. Tomatoes are normally the last thing I harvest when I'm picking a bunch of vegetables because I've had squirrels, and I know I talk about squirrels a lot, but it's my reality. I've had squirrels when I've left like a basket of tomatoes come in behind me and start smacking away at a couple. So try to keep track of them when I harvest them. So these are just really falling off the vine. I'm going to do something a little different. I'm going to go ahead and cut some of these as I'm in here, which means that some immature tomatoes like that may come with them. And you know what? That's okay. If it makes it a little bit easier for me to get to the plants and the sacrifice is minimal, I'm willing to do that. Let's come back around once I get most of these harvested. Hey Siri, play Pandora. I'm just so fidgety. So last year I was able to secure the netting to the wood bed, which is, I think, just more firm when it comes to the connection. And so for these, it's kind of connecting to this thin metal. So there are a lot of rooms for gaps. And so I think that's what's happened. There are a couple of places where I actually saw the hole that I left available. So everywhere I'm squeezing my arm in is clearly an opportunity for the squirrel to come in as well if I don't do a good job at securing it afterwards. Telling a neighbor if I could get to, let's say I have 100 tomatoes, if they get 5% of them, I mean, that's still winning. So right now by my count, it's maybe like, it's a half a dozen or so tomatoes that I found the evidence for. So that's not, you know, the worst that could happen. So some of these that are laying on the soil, the good thing is there's still a little bit of like the leaves, shredded leaves here that I use as mulch. That's providing a little bit of protection where the bugs can't get to them that quickly. So that's a good thing. Most of these that are coming off of the, basically the bottom of the bed are intact. Good morning. Good morning. This is my first cup of coffee for the day, which is about halfway done, and this is like a 2 cup of coffee kind of day. So we're picking up where we left off yesterday. We didn't get as much done as we wanted. It was pretty late in the morning by the time we started picking vegetables, and so it's a little bit earlier. The weather is still really nice for it. It's actually just about 59 degrees Fahrenheit, warming up to like the mid 70s. And so we'll have that kind of weather for the next couple of days. Remember, we learned or relearned the lesson a couple of videos back. Short lists are better than long lists. So I'm just going to harvest as much as I can out of the garden, focusing again on things that will be better off the plants. So like your okra, again, tomatoes, beans for sure. And then if I get to the other things, the cabbage, maybe some leafy greens, I will get that done because I still have to do a couple of things like watering. I do want to show you what we did yesterday off of the first garden bed. And that's primarily with tomatoes and peppers. And then we have 2 areas where we pull cucumbers from. So our tomatoes for yesterday, and we did find the pruners. Let's see if I can tip this over just a little bit. And a few peppers. So I had this was the, again, the faux, it's real landscape fabric, but really, really cheap and not very useful for landscape fabric purposes or weed barrier purposes. So since I had that in the garden, I wanted to cover this box as I was putting tomatoes in because I didn't want, again, squirrels to kind of jump in while I had my back turned. So we did that, and then we have 2 rounds of cucumbers. Let's see here. So this is like half of a 5-gallon bucket. This is where we harvested those together from the front yard fence line. And then we pulled some cucumbers that look a lot better from the backyard. That set of beds that's like corn, potatoes. I haven't talked much about the small planting of potatoes, cucumbers, then more potatoes. So I'm going to take a beat, make a short list before we go outside, because I do need to be obedient to what my mind wants to do, and that is to pickle these today. Doing refrigerator pickles, we talked about how that's really, really simple. I have some dill in the refrigerator from the store, and so yeah. Breakfast salad. I have a couple of tomatoes that won't go another day, so I need to use those up. We'll see how many more tomatoes and things we get off of the vine. All of the things we can harvest. We'll figure out what we need to work with today versus in the next couple of days. Things that can hold longer than that. So yeah, let's dig in. So a quick look at how all things can't be glorious all the time. I have neglected watering these green stalks. I overestimated how much rain we got over the last week. And so very clearly, the green stalks didn't have an opportunity to really get the drench that you want, right? So I'm going to see if we can carefully cut some of these peppers off of the plants. And I have the hose running now. And so, again, some of these are ripe. We'll try to get to those, lighten the load on these plants, and then give some things a good watering, maybe a little bit of pruning. So yeah, and then this bed over here, we're going to stay focused on the harvesting, but this bed over here, when I was covering it, trying not to let the cabbage get wet, it did a number on the rest of the plants in here. So pruning all of that way back. I don't know if we'll even salvage these. These have been absolutely eaten up by the cabbage butterfly. Worse than I've ever seen any of my plants, that I'm attempting to cover. So the same cover seems to be doing the job when it comes to the collards. We won't get to harvesting those for a good while. But we do have some tomatoes in here that I want to get to. It's like, feels like the list never ends. We'll do another test pull of the carrots over there. And this is again for another day, but we really need to get this bed cleaned up. Okie doke. We are going to wrap up the video here. I appreciate y'all spending some time with me. As always, if you have any questions or comments, feel free to drop them below. I hope you and your gardens are doing well, and I look forward to seeing y'all on the next one.